Hi guys, very welcome to Mentour, yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're all doing fantastic. So today on the podcast we're going to talk about medical emergencies in flight. So make sure that you stay tuned to the end as always, because otherwise you might miss something and you don't want to do that. So in the failure management series so far, we've been covering pilot incapacitation, we've been covering rapid depressurization, emergency descent, engine failure after takeoff, which by the way I'm going to repeat in a different podcast in a slightly different format that I think you're actually going to really enjoy, and a couple of more things. Those emergencies or those failures that we have been covering so far happens very rarely. Okay, the emergency that I would say professional pilots encounter by far most often is a medical emergency in flight. So what is a medical emergency in flight? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. So it is when one of the passengers falls critically ill during flight, and it tends to happen for a variety of reasons. I would say the most common one is different forms of heart problems, but we also have anything ranging from severe diarrhea to sudden increase of fever, to fainting in flight, to loss of blood sugar levels. That's something that's really happens very often. The reason for that being that people just tend not to take care of themselves very well before they go flying. So they tend to be stressing, they tend to not eat as much as they should, and when they get into the aircraft and we climb and you get up into slightly more thin air, which actually the cabin will be at about 8,000 feet, then it can present itself by fainting or by just feeling really bad. So that happens, I wouldn't say regularly, but I would say most professional pilots have had a few medical emergencies in their career. I can't remember how many I've had, but I've had a few anyway. So it's important to know what to do, especially for the cabin crew, how to deal with these kind of emergencies, but also for the flight crew to know, how to prioritize things and how to deal with them, really. So what tends to happen is that we're flying along en route. Okay, me and my co-pilot, we're minding our business, taking care of what we should be doing, checking our fuel, checking our navigation, and so on. Then we get the cabin crew calling us from the cabin, and when it is something that requires our immediate attention, we get 3 dings from the cabin. So it's ding, ding, ding. That immediately tells me that there's something bad that's happened in the cabin, or something that requires immediate attention from me. So if the captain is pilot flying, he tends to, or she tends to, hand over the controls to the first officer and take that call to make sure that the captain gets first-hand information. So I will go over to the service interphone and I will say, this is the captain, go ahead. Now what follows then is something we call a PAA briefing, which stands for problems, action taken, and additional information. It is important that it stays in a very structured form like that, because it's important that there's no ambiguity in the way that these kind of briefings are being given. So the cabin crew will say, okay, this is the number 1, or whoever it is that's given it to me. Are you ready for a PAA briefing? I will take up my notepad or whatever I had and I'll say, go ahead. And they will then continue with problem. So we have a passenger who's feeling unwell. Action taken. This normally, before they call us, they would have normally started CPR if it's needed, or they would have already done their specific drill. Now I won't go into too much depth when it comes to the cabin crew drill, but it involves things like administering emergency oxygen if it's needed from the oxygen bottles that we have on board, and also they would have done a PA for a medically suitable person. Before that was a doctor or nurse PA, but now we've changed it over to a medically suitable person because it might include a whole range of different occupations. So problem, we have a passenger that's feeling unwell. Actions, we have made a PA for a medically suitable person, and additional information that might include who is feeling sick. Okay, and I, as a captain, I want to know a couple of things. I want to know the age of the person. I want to know the sex of the person, so it's male or female, and I also want to know what the chief complaints are. So are we talking about chest pains? Are we talking about something that mimics a stroke? Is it just fainting? You know, how is the person feeling? What kind of symptoms is the person showing? The reason I want to know this is because I want to then give this information to air traffic control so that they can inform whoever, well, or whatever medical services that we have available on the ground. So once I've received the PAA briefing, I will then tell the cabin crew that okay, it's acknowledged. I'll read it back to them, and then I will tell them that okay, I'm going to give you a NITS briefing in a while, just let me deal with this. So I'll leave the cabin crew to do their job, and then I will turn to my first officer and I'll say, okay, so this is the situation we have. What do you think? We will then start to decide whether or not we can continue to our destination, or if we need to divert, or maybe we've just taken off, so it's better just to continue or to return back to our airport of departure. Anyway, we'll decide that. If we do decide to divert, we tend to choose an airport that we know pretty much well. It might be better to go to an airport that one of us has been to before, rather than going to the one that is absolutely closest but we don't know anything about, because we might actually be quicker to get down to one of the airports that we know. And another thing that we also have to do during our diversion is that we have to tell our cabin crew what's actually going on. So we have received the PAA briefing from them, but we also need to give them what's called a NITS briefing. That's my little boy singing a little bit down here. So NITS briefing, I've mentioned NITS briefing before. They call other acronyms in other companies. It stands for nature, intention, time, special procedures. So in this case they would know the nature, but I will tell them anyway. So I would tell number one to the flight deck. They would come up, number one would listen to me and say, this is a NITS briefing, please listen carefully. The nature, as you know, is a medical emergency. Intention, we are intending to divert to X airport. Time, I'll give them the approximate time. So that might be 20 minutes from now we're going to land. As special procedures, I want you to continue to administer oxygen or first aid to the patient, and I want you to secure them when I give you cabin crew seats for landing. And I'm going to make a PA to the passengers, telling them what's going on, why we're diverting, and to make sure that they keep seated during the landing, obviously, but all the way until the ambulance comes and brings the passenger off the aircraft. So that will be my NITS briefing, and then we will just continue with the diversion. And I will also tell them to give me any update on the passenger in case the passenger's state gets worse or better. Right, so we will then initiate the diversion. ATC, when it comes to ATC, we will declare a PAN call, which is an urgency call. It will tell ATC that we have a problem on board, but that it's no immediate danger of the aircraft as such. Okay, that's the difference between a Mayday call. A Mayday call will initiate different protocols from ATC, and it will tell ATC that we have something that is threatening the safety of the aircraft. While a PAN call is an urgency call, and it will tell them that something or someone is ill on board or we need priority, but there's no immediate danger of the aircraft. Right? That's the difference between the two. So we will then initiate the diversion, as I said before. When it comes to how we fly the diversion, is we adhere to our standard operating procedures. We might ask for an increase in speed from ATC in order to get down quicker, but it's important to remember not to stress this thing. Okay, we try to get down expeditiously to help the passenger, but never ever do something that would endanger the aircraft, obviously. So we wouldn't, like you would, for example, if you had an in-flight fire, which I've talked about before, you try to get down as quickly as possible. In this case, we make sure that we keep ourselves to our standard operating procedures, not to end up in a go-around or something like this. So expeditiously, but safely and controlled is the way that we fly it. While we're doing this, ATC might give us what's called a discrete frequency. That's in order for us to be able to communicate with maybe some medically suitable person on the ground, so they can give us advice on how to deal with the passenger that's feeling ill. That's in that case done by one of the pilots handling the discrete frequency, and the other pilot then handling both flying and talking to ATC in order to get herself down on the ground. What else? Yes, a medically suitable person. The cabin crew has made a PA to find a medically suitable person. It's very important that they check that that person actually has an ID that's showing that they are actually medically suitable, because there are a lot of people out there who would just try to play a hero, for example, without knowing anything. That's the same as when, if people would want to come in and help during a piloting capacitation, for example, they have to be ID'd as pilots and actually working for the airline in order to do so. But you can be sure that if you do ask for only a pilot, someone will pitch up that is actually not a pilot. So it's very important to check an ID. If they don't carry an ID, then they can advise on what to do, but not actually treat the patient or give any kind of medicines, so on. Okay. So the hopefully there is a medically suitable person on board, so they can help the passengers that's feeling ill, and I can also talk to that person, so they can give me direct advice, saying that this person is likely to suffer from a heart attack. We need to get down very quickly, or actually this is looking okay. We have administered a little bit of sugar to the patient. He or she has woken up, so we can safely continue to our destination. This kind of information is critical for me in order to do proper decision making during the diversion or continuation of the flight. So if we do divert, there is a entity on all international airports called Port Health. That's an entity that gets involved in case we would have a passenger on board who's showing signs of a communicable disease, such as cholera, typhoid, or Ebola, which is the most recent plague that's hit down in Africa. If the patient would be showing signs of a communicable disease, then Port Health in the airport that we're going to might want us to keep everyone on board until a doctor has decided whether or not this person is actually having or is likely to have the communicable disease that we're being afraid that it has. Port Health might also take information about passengers 4 rows in front and 4 rows in the back of the passenger who's feeling unwell, if that's the case. And also, if we would have, God forbid, a person actually dying on board, Port Health will also be involved in that. So we would try to get down, land the aircraft. We would not stop the aircraft on the runway or a taxiway in order to get the ambulance to the aircraft. Most likely we would actually taxi into gate, stop at the gate, and I will make a PA to the passengers, telling the passengers to remain seated to make sure that the medical personnel can get on board and treat the patient or get the patient off before we can disembark the other passengers. That's pretty much it, guys, about medical emergencies. If you do have any questions, as always, give them to me in the comment section below. And also, I would like you to, as always, share this video if you like it. If you know about any aviation forums or things that you think that my videos would be appreciated, then feel free to post them there. And also share them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. For now, I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.